welcome today. I'm Tom Moore.
I'm Scott Burke.
We're the creators of Geometry and Construction, and here to talk to you a little bit about what we do. Just give you a little background. The city of Loveland is about an hour north of Denver. We're about a population of about 60,000. We're a 4 high school district. Our particular high school is a 9-12 comprehensive high school that is rough population of about 1,700 on any given day. And we're here to tell you a little bit about contextual learning.
Mm-hmm. So as part of our contextual learning program, we started a program called Geometry and Construction. Typically, a lot of people start asking us questions about, well, what does contextual learning really look like? One of the projects that we do, which keep in mind, this is an entire curriculum at this point, which we'll get more into, but one of our first projects is this scale balsa wood model, which is a very common CTE type of thing that you're going to build either in a construction class or an architecture drafting class. When we first started this program out, not really understanding contextual learning maybe ourselves to the fullest extent, we purchased kits that are on the market, and those kits are anywhere from $120 to $150 a piece. Pretty much though, it's a paint by numbers type of process for the kids. And so it wasn't until one day that we came back together because we were teaching the same thing just in different languages, Tom from the math land and for me from the CTE land, that we realized that we were in some undiscovered territory with this. And this is what that looked like.
From the math classroom perspective, that project of assembling a balsa wood house, we approached it, our math teachers approach it from a proportional math objective, in that most of our state tests, whether it be Colorado or wherever, there's a lot of proportional thinking on it. So naturally we go for the proportional thinking and solving the proportions right away. The problem is that is not always appealing to the kids' best learning style. And so we wanted to make sure that we were approaching it from both ways, because both have value, and that's the key. At no time should a team-taught situation ever put down the other subject. They both have value for the kids.
So Tom alluded to the proportional thinking method of solving this problem of scaling this balsa wood house for the students from the math perspective. On the CTE side of things, we use an awful lot of things like production tools. And so what I was teaching the kids was how to use an architect scale. It wasn't until one day after class that we combined together, Tom and I, to talk about how we were each doing this problem and solving it our own way. And it really dawned on me when Tom said, well, what happens on this architect scale if I change the proportion to something that's not on that architect scale? And it dawned on me that I couldn't do the math behind what really this architect scale was all about. And so that was where we kind of stumbled onto, there is another way to do this, because all the time in your state standardized testing, you're not going to find an architect scale anywhere on any state standardized test.
Sometimes math teachers even want to avoid production tools like the architect scale. By the way, it took me a while to even learn what it was. I had not been trained in that in my training over the years. But the problem with the production tool, math teachers will say, well, let's don't use that. Keep in mind, it's real similar to the debate that's occurring over calculators, or it has occurred over calculators as to when to use it. Well, if you're truly against production tools, you know, that cell phone that you probably have in your pocket, let's get rid of that. I think that's a production tool. That microwave that you go home and use at night, nah, you don't need that. We need to go back to the wood stove. And by the way, that car, I think we need to go back to the horse and buggy days. So there is a balance between production tools and the mathematics, and we truly try to achieve that in our geometry and construction course.
So one of the things that happened was that Tom and I, we built this thriving partnership between the two areas because we started to see this middle ground that was sort of undiscovered in a lot of places. And so the real important thing here is that we did not change the respective curriculums. Me from the CTE side as far as the construction side, and also Tom from the math side, we didn't really change that. All we did was reorganize the content areas to be taught so that they fit together seamlessly.
So figuratively, we tore the geometry book apart, rearranged it, all the same objectives, different order. Very important to understand, we were not allowed to water down or change our math curriculum at all. So it's the same objectives. The rest of the story is that our geometry class now builds a house. Now, not all geometry and construction programs build houses, but we are building a house, and that's a very important thing for people to understand, that you need to have a culminating project that is bigger than any one student or one class.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is that around the country, everyone talks about STEM education, and STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. I think that a lot of people understand what STEM is, and a lot of people understand maybe why we have to have good quality STEM education. But I think one of the reasons why we get a lot of attention nationally is really because we figured out a way of how to deliver quality STEM education. And the other reason for that is that when we were originally putting this program together, we were told by some of our upper level administrators that we were not allowed to create a dead-end math class. So there's an awful lot of different kinds of programs out there where they talk about combining things, but what it really boils down to is that it's a lot of times a trade math type of situation where a student's going to come into a geometry class, and just because maybe they don't quite understand it, we're going to call it geometry, but it's not really the full-fledged geometry that's going to get them prepped to move on to Algebra 2 or above. And so that's what we were not allowed to create. For that, then, we also have a short video clip that we're going to go ahead and show you now.
Students at Loveland High School are helping others beat the recession by building houses for families in need.
This is wonderful. The students are getting help from a parent who asked us to pay it forward. You see, the kids had a dream of building affordable homes, but when donations of lumber and supplies declined, a viewer stepped in. Tonight, CBS 4's Suzanne McCarroll shows us how that money is being put to good use.
Hey, Casey. This is high school geometry.
It's a lot more technical than you would think.
Where a construction site serves as a classroom. Would you rather be in a classroom looking at pages of a geometry book?
Oh no, definitely not. It's a lot more fun to apply it to a house.
Yet they're still learning about things like acute angles and how they apply to a roof. These students can't wait for weekend assignments.
The kids will say to us at the end of that Saturday, okay, what time do we need to come in on Sunday? And we will have to tell them, I'm sorry, we need a day off.
But these students are learning more than practical applications of geometry. They're learning about economics and how much people in their own community need help during this recession.
It can't be that fun being homeless, so making a house for someone is just a really good feeling.
The houses the students construct are relocated to a neighborhood and offered to homeless families.
Let's see.
Christina, Lily, and their dad, Nate, are moving into their brand new home today.
Nice.
For 8 months, they've been sleeping in churches, moving every week.
We were sleeping in classrooms.
They had cots.
Here, the girls have their own bunk beds. Will you miss anything about moving every week?
Nope.
Those words are far more important to the students building these houses than the geometry grade on their report cards.
25 years from now, when you look back at your high school, is this one of the experiences you'll remember?
For sure, I will remember this for the rest of my life.
Suzanne McCarroll reporting. Those houses are sold to the nonprofit Angel Village, and then the families can rent them for 2 years while they get back on their feet.
So the question always comes up as to why we wanted to change. So we're going to give you a little background as to why each of us had a desire to change our past teaching techniques. One of the things that was happening at the time and still continues to some extent is what happens to getting all kids college ready, but what happens to those kids that are not necessarily going on to college. I just want to point out one quick stat for you. For every 100 kids that enter 9th grade in your high school, according to national statistics, 70 of them will graduate. Makes you have to stop and think, at least made me stop and think, what happened to that other 30? That bothers me. Then of those 70, 44 are going to go on and enroll in a 4-year institution, college institution. Of those 44, 30 of them will return for their 2nd year. And of those 30 that, remember we started with 100, of those 30 then there will be 21 of them that will graduate with a 4-year degree after 6 years of leaving high school. That caused me as a teacher to ponder, am I truly meeting the needs of all kids? Also at that time, There was some other data coming out. If you're familiar with the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and you look at the math scores for 17-year-olds, over the past 40 years, those scores have remained relatively the same. Every year, we were examining our state test scores. We were trying to figure out how to tweak our curriculum a little bit here, a little bit there to improve our test scores. I realized I really had to change completely my teaching technique, and I needed to become more of a kinesthetic teacher. Also needed to make sure that as many avenues for kids to learn was in the curriculum naturally.
So Tom mentioned some math motivation as far as why we needed to change. On the CTE side of things, there were a number of things that were happening as well. One of which was that we were seeing a decline not only in enrollment, but also in support from our upper level administrators as far as our quality CTE programs. And I think that was really being driven a lot by students not performing well on academic standards. And so what was happening was that students were sometimes having to double up on taking 2 math classes rather than just 1, or 2 English classes rather than just 1, which took away from our elective areas. About this same time, we started to get some national data to kind of help build our cause to support and to be able to tell administrators why we thought this was a good thing. So one of those things was from Bill Daggett, actually, with Quadrant D learning. And really, Quadrant D learning is how do you actually get kids to think at a very high level, creatively, to solve problems, using both Bloom's taxonomy and also what they've developed called the knowledge taxonomy. We figured out a way how to have most of our class be in Quadrant D learning the majority of the time. The other thing that came out about this same time was some data from James Stone, Dr. James Stone, out of the University of Louisville, Kentucky, with the National Research Center for Career and Technical Education. They did a big study nationally, about 5 different states, over 3,000 students involved, where students were taught math 10% of the time in context in their CTE classes. And they were able to show a pretty significant shift in the bell curve as far as data. So this really helped us build our argument with the school district of why we needed to start an initiative similar to that. So going back to that new delivery method that we talked about, where we're both teaching as a team, it's really important to know that this whole program is team taught. We are both in the classroom at the same time. I'm in the math classroom, and Tom's also in the CTE classroom, or as we call it, our build site.
And also, by combining the 2 teachers and doubling the kids, but by combining the 2 teachers, the math teacher now has a built-in resource for the relevance for the mathematics. How many times have you heard kids say, where am I ever going to use that? Believe it or not, I have not heard that in the last 5 or 6 years now. It is just naturally built in, always answering that question for kids. You get kids engaged in their learning when they are not just sitting and listening, but they are now doing, both in the classroom and also out on the build site. It creates another avenue for kids to learn that we don't always appeal to in the 4-wall classroom.
Mm-hmm. The other thing here with academic rigor for CTE, when I first came into the school district, my curriculum liaison for CTE told me that my administrators, when I was evaluated, were going to ask me some questions like, are you teaching reading, writing, and math in your content? And they told me that my answer needed to be yes, and that was it. After about 3 years of being in the district, though, that question totally changed, and it went a little more like this. Are you teaching reading, writing, and math in your content area? And my answer was yes, but then the question became, can you prove that? For this, in my old line of work with auto, I knew that there was no way for me to quantifiably prove that I was doing any of those things related to our state standardized test. But the beauty of doing this team-taught model is that the academic rigor automatically comes out, because it's not me that has to be the expert in that, it's actually Tom or my math teaching partners that actually have to do that, which is great. It's a great tie.
Also, as part of this, it is very important that a project, I've mentioned it earlier, that there is a project that is very authentic, real, but also one that is bigger than any one or even a group of kids could do, where they all come together. And that's that team facilitation that we will talk about probably a little bit later, where that comes in to play, making sure that groups can work together well.
So there's some specifics of our contextual model that we're going to address here. So number one, we already talked about both of us are involved in the classroom 100% of the time, supporting one another. Again, it's not that I have to be a math expert or that Tom has to be a CTE expert, but that we're there to actually support each other all the way through.
It is not a new class. We have to keep coming back to that because a lot of times people think, well, we are not allowed a new class. A new class implies new objectives. We have the same objectives in geometry and the same objectives for construction. So it's all about how that information is delivered to the kids. Mm-hmm. Our class sizes are about 45 to 50 for the 2 teachers. In order to do that, we do some things in cooperative groups. In fact, not just do some things, the whole class is structured around being able to function in cooperative groups. Very important concept for teachers to understand.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's really important is that the classes are blocked back to back. Essentially, we've hidden the broccoli in the cheese, so to speak, for the kids. They're really getting a double period of math, but they don't realize it because we're hiding it in the context of construction. Or with some of our other projects that we've done, we're hiding it in the context of automotive, or of manufacturing, or agricultural ed, or business. Any of the CTE areas can actually do this, and it's pretty slick when it actually works. So a couple of key practices here. First of all, we wanted to create a program that was for all kids, not just those kids, however you define those kids to be. And here's the result that we actually came with. First thing, we have about 51% female student enrollment in our program, which is huge for a CTE area. And that's really what we kind of strive to get at, and that's what we did.
We have a cross-section of all kids in the building, pretty much an equal percent of special ed and ELL that would be in our normal building, 4-wall classrooms. They are enrolled with us. So we are targeting all kids. We have all motives. Originally, we thought it would be just kids who are interested in the construction, engineering, architectural fields. But reality is that we've now appealed to all of our kids. In fact, 80% of our geometry classes are now taught using geometry and construction. The 4-wall classroom is now the rare item for kids. So you get all kids because they want to do it just because it's fun. And it's a different way of learning their mathematics. And regarding another key practice, our math cannot be watered down. That was a mandate from obviously our state standardized testing, but also from our administrators, that our math, our geometry specifically, in this case, was every bit as rigorous as a 4-wall classroom. Our data, the most recent year data is on our website, but I'll kind of quickly look at this. The numbers won't necessarily mean a lot to you unless you're from Colorado. But just to give you an idea about our test, 50% of the test is multiple guess, 50% is open response. Another thing about our test, every 9th grader in Colorado takes a test over geometry. Whether they're in geometry or in Algebra 1 or whatever, every 9th grader takes a geometry test. Every 10th grader takes an Algebra 2 test. They could be in calculus and they're going to take an Algebra 2 test, or they could be in pre-algebra and still take a geometry test, or excuse me, an Algebra 2 test. So that's kind of background, a little bit about our test. If you look at the scores for our geometry and construction kids, which is predominantly all 9th and 10th graders in our building, 95% of them, we scored a 640. If you compare that to some other schools in our district, our Berthoud High School is our math and science magnet. They scored a 610. If you look at our 4-wall classroom here at Loveland High of geometry kids, they scored a 587. If you look at our Mountain View High School is our arts school as well as our Project Lead the Way school at 584. Thompson Valley School High School is considered our AP school. All schools in our district have sort of a label. Our AP school scored a 584. This got the attention of our administrators when our scores started increasing, and that is part of the reason why we are being asked to look at other schools in other states as well and helping them launch a geometry construction program.
Okay, so another key practice that we have is development of our 21st century workplace skills. As being career and technical educators, one of the things that we are required to have with Carl Perkins funding is an advisory board. typically when you go to an advisory board meeting, you'll have people from industry who will say things to you like, you're not training kids who are employable to me. And I think as educators, we automatically assumed that we weren't turning out kids that could read, write, or do math. But in really probing with these people and finding out and really asking them pointed questions of what specifically are you talking about, what they really came to the table to say were that we weren't training kids in 21st century workplace skills, as far as with teamwork, internship opportunities, communication skills, and all of those kinds of things. All the things that we don't test for in normal K-12 education. Those are the things, though, that this program or these types of contextual programs can really bring to the forefront for students to actually gain in. The other thing, too, was that I knew as a career and technical ed teacher, because career and technical ed typically is a pretty expensive program to run, no matter whether it's business, culinary arts, or automotive or construction, it doesn't really matter, was that even if we built a house every single year, I knew I could never go back to the school district and say things like, okay, we did this last year, now I need another $30,000 to build another house. So that was not really going to happen. So I knew that we needed to create a program that was 100% self-funded after the initial startup money. So we've come up with a lot of different projects that could be capstone projects to get kids involved. It's important that it be authentic enough that it has as many different career aspects in a given field. So for example, in construction, you want to make sure that you don't just have framing, that you also have some roofing, that you also have some plumbing, some electrical, hopefully a little bit of HVAC needs in there as well. So we've got a number of different projects here that we actually have done, or other schools that are replicating geometry and construction have done.
So as Scott has mentioned, the 4 example of some projects that are out there. We've got a dog or any type of kennel animal enclosure. It's kind of cool that you can put a little plumbing, a little electrical in that. The second one over there to your right is a small cabin. Those plans actually come in the curriculum. The curriculum is approximately 1,200 pages, full book for the kids in geometry to use, as well as in the construction side. The third one, the lower left there, is an animal like a barn, something of that nature that some areas find more easy to sell, because it's very important you choose a project that you, number one, are comfortable with doing, but also that you can sell so you can fund your next year's project. The fourth one there is one of the houses that we have built for a nonprofit. We do build on campus. For us, it's very important that we don't transport kids off campus. That creates too much of a legal nightmare, lose too much time. So we are very much, we stay on campus and build, and then move the house or the cabin or whatever it is to the site at the end of the year.
So as we've done this program, we're definitely finding that success just keeps leading to more success. All 4 of these things here, with the IB program, the high schools that work, the Common Core state standards, and also Habitat for Humanity, are big national initiatives, and we've found that we are completely in alignment with all of them through this type of program.
And it's kind of cool that has happened. If you look at our website, just to kind of give you some quick information about it, you will find a section where it has a lot of frequently asked questions. Really, if you're interested, would advise you to go to that particular spot. The research that we've talked about is on there, as well as some of the videos, some additional videos from other schools. Also, one of the things that usually comes up is how do you get additional training. That's on there as well. And really important for the math teachers, there's a unit 1 of 8 units on there that you can download for free. So you can see what the book that the kids get through this curriculum. We do not use a traditional textbook. We have our own, so that it is in order of the process of building a house, a cabin, or kennel, or whatever it is. Also, Scott wants to talk to you a little bit about some other initiatives that we've got going.
Yeah, so in addition to the geometry and construction program, we use that kind of as a launching spot to paint a picture for people of the potential that's actually there. We also get hired to come out and actually do trainings with all types of CTE and math teachers from across the country. Everything from video production in LA to agricultural education in Texas to cosmetology in Indiana. We've worked with just about everyone. So that is one option that we do. We also train people in the full geometry and construction program. We also have done keynote addresses where we come in and actually talk to large groups of people. And in addition to that, we've done one-day little math jump starts where we're coming in and showing math teachers exactly how we would do a hands-on approach to different math content areas, everything from Algebra 1 and above. So those are really kind of the things that we do outside of that. And the last thing that we do, which is new during this particular year, is that we will work with school districts to create similar initiatives. We're working with a school district in Texas now on doing something with manufacturing and Algebra 1. So that's very, very specific to that school district. So,
if you have any questions, give us a call. Thanks.
Yep.